Hey YouTube, today is Friday, July 10th, and today we're going to take a look at the Reddit r/Factorio weekly question thread. If you like these sort of videos, make sure you hit that like, subscribe, ring that bell so you get a notification whenever I post a video. If you have a question or a comment about anything I've posted, I have a couple other videos on YouTube, or you can you leave me a comment in the comment section below. All the links for everything I talk about be in the description. So with that, let's get to the video. All right, ytsejamajesty. What's the best way to explore the map? I know radar pretty much does it, and I've seen threads implying it's basically the only way besides driving around. It seems rather slow. Even using solar panels to provide power. Is there something I'm missing, perhaps? Well, this is a good question. And for that, let's go to the video, and I will show you the way that I explore the map in a single direction. All right, question is, what's a good way? I don't know if there's any best way, but what's a good way to explore the map? So what I've done is I've got a little test map here. This is using Creative Mod. So I've got a fair amount of it explored so far. And you can see I've got a super radar in here, which is just one of the mod things. Let's just assume that's your main base, but I want to explore off in this direction. So what I'm going to do is I've got my left-hand drive rail system here, and got the power poles in between, the long power poles in between, and then I put some signals down here. So this is probably one of the just an early train build. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a radar in my hand. I'll direct your attention up on the mini map, which is where what's most important in this regard. You don't necessarily have to put solar panels in there, but it's kind of wasted space if you don't. You'll have to take those solar panels away if you want to do some intersections. But as I put a radar here, you'll see as it is in my hand, it gives you the monitoring range of the radius of where it's going to monitor actively. And one of the ways that I like to do this specifically with biters is I kind of like to have the entire railway monitored the whole way through. So what I'm going to do is, let me just get out of the train real quick and grab this blueprint with nothing but rail. And we're going to extend this way out. And we'll just keep pushing this all the way out. You'll run into some trees and maybe some landfill stuff that you got to do. But all in all, you'll have a nice railway out to where you're going. So what I'll do is, as I move, I'm going to put a radar in my hand. You see the mini map. You see that purple, dark bluish range is changing, and right about here, I'm going to cross the line to where I'm kind of at the border of where I monitored before, where my previous radar is going to monitor, and I'm going to put one down. Boom. So now the mini-map just opened up, and what you'll begin to notice is that these radars are going to go out here and scan these sectors, and there's a pretty good range. As these radars are powered, they're just going to go reveal all of these sectors. Now, you won't have active monitoring in there. You still have fog of war, right? And eventually you'll get a pretty good radius out here of the sector is scanned, so you'll be able to see resources, but it's not active monitoring. What you really care about is, for active monitoring anyway, is the rail itself, so that you can see what's going on all through here. You can see any stopped trains or biters or anything like that coming to hit your rails. So this is how I'd recommend to answer that question: is dart off into a single direction and then let your radars do the work. I will also tell you.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, my name is William. I'm doing it better.
One of the other benefits of doing this is that you're going to extend out into a single direction, and the farther you get away from spawn, from 0, 0 on the map, the bigger the resources become, and the more rich the resources become. So I would recommend not going in a concentric circles out from your main base, but pick a direction and go either east-west. And you will have some long train rides, but you're in the end you may get up into the billions in terms of resource availability. If this is 0-0, strike out in a single direction or go east-west and go from there. Don't try and make this big, because all you're going to do is all you're really going to do is increase the amount of memory that your saves are, decrease performance, all those other things. There's also some ups and downs to putting solar in here. The biters may try and munch your rails. They try and go through them. They'll walk over rails, but these solar panels may be obstacles, and they might get munched. But at the same time, then you'll figure out where your biter nests are. You can certainly do this without the solar panels and just put radars, but then your radars are considered military targets, and your biters will come after them. So anyway, there's some considerations, food for thought for how to explore the map effectively. If you have a single lane of track, says ytsejamajesty, with a stop on each end, will a train automatically move forward and backwards between those two stations? I just create a loop between two stations with the track essentially parallel to each other. I realize I'm not wasting my time and resource on the second track. No, it's you have to have a locomotive on both ends in order for it to go backwards. So here's what I think here's what I think Jamajesty did is he's saying that I have two stops, and will a train just go backwards along this stop? So it looks like he created a loop that just went parallel to the other track, so it loops around. So I've got stop 1 and stop 2. It's going to wait there for 10 seconds. So let's go ahead and get it started. Trains, a couple things. Trains will not go backwards unless you're in manual mode. So if they're in automatic mode, they need to be going forward. So if he's got something like this, does its business at stop 1, and he just looped around to stop 2, and then it goes back and forth, etc. This is how he's described this question. This is perfectly acceptable. You can do this, but yeah, there is some wasted track in here. This is very elementary train setup. It's nothing to be ashamed of. Many of us probably set up our first trains exactly like this when we were trying to figure it out. There's a little bit of a learning curve for trains, but this is perfectly acceptable. I think what he's asking is, can I just have it go backwards and forwards? The answer is yes. But you do need to have a locomotive on the other end, because locomotives want to go forward always. So what you want to do is rearrange your stop to where it can load and unload with a train on either side. But also this means that you got to put your station on the opposite side of the track. So that means you can go backwards and forwards, but you can definitely set up a train line that looks like this and go backwards and forwards and deliver a bunch of material thusly. This is very common. I think this is one of the first ones I set up. And it's also one that you can get going just to get going, where one of your first endeavors outside the base many times is oil, because most everything else may be already included in your starting area. There is a chance on map gen that your oil is going to be way out. And so, look, all I need is oil's way out, and I just want to bring some in. This is a very common setup where instead this will be a fluid wagon instead of cargo wagon. And you load that in, and you pump crude out and then back to your main base. And it's just a one single track with two locomotives, one on each end, pulling 3 or 4 fluid wagons back and bringing the oil into your base. So in answer to your question, this is an option. Probably a superior option is this one. When you get to maturity, you'll end up having something like this, to where you'll have trains only go on one direction on track number 1, and then they'll only go in the other direction on track number 2. So top one goes this way, bottom track goes this way, and you'll eventually get to where you have little intersections that come off and stackers and all kinds of good stuff. But this as a starting point is completely acceptable. So, says NapoleanStokes, I'm pretty far into mid-game. I just got into advanced oils and laser turrets. However, I'm really struggling with the big biter spitter spawns, as I was not aware of clearing their bases increases their evolution factor. Yes, it does. 3 things that increase their pollution. Three things that increase their evolution. Number 1, pollution. Number 2, killing their spawns. Number 3, time. If you delay, if you tarry, if you wander yonder and pass the time, they will evolve naturally. I'm struggling to keep the bugs at bay. What are my options? I've got a lot of regular turrets with some laser turrets at high-risk locations. Number 1, defense, is get into those flame turrets. We did this last week. I'll put a link into my other video where we went into a test base and we showed the defensive power of flame turrets. Defensive flame turrets are amazing. Combine those with walls. The good part about walls is that they are unaffected by flame. So put some walls out there, make it a torturous path so that as biters come in, they have to weave in and out of these walls, make sure they're too thick, 2 walls with two spaces in between the wall, so that big and behemoth biters can walk through them. If there are 1 space in between the walls, then you're only going to allow the smalls and mediums in. But put some walls out there, put a torturous path in so that takes them a little bit, and then set up some flame turrets. You'll need some engines, and you need to power them with either crude straight or light oil, and those bugs will die quick to the flame turrets. We did a drill last week with the green behemoth biters, and they just got dunked on by flame. That's a really, really great way to defend. What I would recommend for attacking your base, if you're in mid-game, then likely you may have some poison capsules. Poison capsules absolutely dunk on worms. So that'll be one of your first things. To hit the base with. Maybe you run by the base and you deal out some poison capsules to kill the worms. Medium worms take 2. I think big and behemoth worms take 3. It may be medium worms take 1, big worms take 2, and behemoth worms take 3. But deal them out. The damage stacks, so put 2 or 3 on them and clear off those worms. Once the worms are gone, then you can kind of do a lot easy. You can do turret creeping a lot easier, and that's what I would recommend. Turret creeping is great. Also, if you get rid of the worms, then you can also drive a tank around or a car and shoot them. Ultimately, what you're going to want to get to, though, is if you're at mid game, your end goal is getting to just power dominance, to where you can put down as many laser turrets as you want, and you're gonna be defended pretty well. The other one is your technology is getting your Mark II power armor. That's near the rocket. I think it might be past the rocket. And getting some nuclear reactors on your back in your suit, and then personal laser defenses. Get 4 or 6 personal laser defenses with some nuclear reactors in your bag. And all you got to do is walk near the nests, and the personal lasers will just murder face. So that's your end goal of technology, and in terms of biter dominance, is get up there to that Mark II armor. Makes life a lot easier, not just for biters, but for personal roboports and all that sort of thing. So anyway, there you go. The flame turrets is the one I recommend, and poison capsules from mid game. Skytbest says, why is this refinery no longer producing heavy oil? Do I need to empty out the other materials first? I have no use for those at the moment. This question captures oil and advanced oil and the problems that people have with it. So I will show you this. When you looks like he's got a pipe full of heavy, and what he needs right now likely is lubrication for electric pumps. So he's pumping his heavy off to have that transferred into lubrication. Getting the look, he's got engines, so he's probably trying to convert this into electric engines, or he's got blue belts on his mind and he needs lubrication, right? But look here. He's got petroleum gas and light oil blocking the output, and you have to make 3 in equal amounts, or they have to have both. All 3 of them have to be in balance, and they have to have room to output. So you must consume these. Now, the question is how do I balance all of this? That's the root of this question. Is I got to deal with all 3 of these at the same time, which is one of the biggest hurdles to understanding oil. So the 3 uses is you get that petroleum gas and start making sulfur for your chemical science, and start making plastic for your chemical science. You need a monstrous amount of those. So pull those off. But look here, he's already making the other one. Yeah, that's right. He's already got petroleum gas over here. So use some of this petroleum gas to start replacing the basic oil that you've got making over here. This light oil, my recommendation is to start making solid fuel out of that and make that solid fuel into rocket fuel. That will consume a lot of it, and then you've got to figure out cracking. I have a video that I'll link for you that shows you some simple signals as to how to set up a very effective cracking system. And you don't have to get into any of the combinators. It's just a pump and a wire and a tank, and you can really control your tank levels, and you can avoid this exact scenario, because this is the most efficient way to produce oil and oil derivatives, is to do advanced oil like this. But this is the oil learning curve that gets everybody and makes everybody quit and makes everybody restart Factorio. This is the scenario. So power through it and put your brain power into figuring out an equal amount of usage of those and consumption. And then if you're not able to do that, then you need a cracking plan to deal with the byproducts, right? But good luck. Stay with it. It's worth it. Ying Yang 107 says, my coal is currently limited. Wondering if coal used in boilers to power electric miners is as efficient as coal powering steel furnaces directly. Threads from 3 years ago say steel ones are more coal efficient, but is that still the case in 1.8? If you don't have any modules, the steel furnaces are still effective, as efficient at burning coal in burners. But here's the thing: is that you do want to kind of shift off of. If you have limited coal, if you do want to shift off of that, you can shift off of that and use solid fuel to power up your steel furnaces, or solid fuel to power your boilers to make steam, to make it all electric. That's a very common way of doing it, is getting off of coal. So oil is the in-game logical way to adjust off of coal and to ease that coal burden. You really, end game, you really want to get coal off of your power plan, and you want all of your coal going to plastic. That's because that is what the path is that's going to consume most of it in science. Is you want every bit of coal going to plastic, or if you have biters in your explosives and grenades and all that other good stuff. But for sure, look into oil. Is where you need to be running. Yin Yang is get that light oil, get to advanced oil first, or get to advanced oil recipe. Have the light oil produce solid fuel, and then throw that solid fuel into the boilers and make everything else electric. And then you're going to be off coal. If you still need an extra spot to push that solid fuel in, you're making too much solid fuel, sure, keep throwing those into your steel furnaces. But what it'll do is it'll ease your coal burden off of, or ease your power off of coal, and put it onto oil, because just like the previous question, the person is saying, I've got too much solid fuel. What do I do with it? How do I balance oil? And that is a great way, is get your solid fuel being consumed by your power network. Zwiebelhans. I'm trying to get some friends into Factorio. One of them has a slow internet due to living rural. He is worried about the network load Factorio has, especially on later bases. Told him about my drone swarms. He does play Minecraft, which lags for him at times. Okay. Does anyone know how Factorio plays on slow, limited connections even better? Does anyone know how it compares to Minecraft? I don't know how it compares to Minecraft, but Factorio does a decent job at managing lag and multiplayer bases. The good news is, if you turn bots off, if you turn biters off, it'll be better. The only thing that may get you later on is bots. But if he has a network connection, you're probably going to lag. So that's why I'm recommending turning biters off. It may actually have a little bit of time trying to have a little bit of trouble syncing everything up. But you should be fine. I would give it a try. It might take a little bit to connect, and once it syncs up and start, you're probably going to be fine. If it may be a little bit to get him to log in, but once he logs in, and the map downloads and everything syncs up, Factorio does a decent job at syncing up all the operation and all the user input. So I would say the best way to try it without knowing any specifics of data rates or connectivity rates or packet loss is give it a shot, and have them do a test run or something, and see how it is. You may be fine. You may just get in there and you go, okay, this is no big deal, right? POS_KI is imprisoned by OCD. Analysis paralysis. What is the rough iron to copper to steel ratio for end-game megabase, assuming the iron needed for steel is also included in the number of parts needed? Okay, I've tried to Google it, but I have not found much. Well, the best way to do this, some of the other folks have shown here, is Kirk McDonald. And Kirk McDonald Factorio. Let's go here. And what you can do in Kirk McDonald is, let's give a quick overview. We're going to choose 1760. And in-game, we're going to choose the best stuff, blue belts, all those other things. And if you're fully, did he say fully beaconed? No, we're going to leave beacons out of it. We'll just assume that beacons will make everything better, right? You come back here and you can add, let's do green, and if you put this in the right ratio, if I may not remember the ratios right, but maybe I'll just do it empirically here. So Kirk McDonald is a way that you can measure your end game in terms of resources needed. Your inputs are what kind of science you need, or what kind of machine you need, and the number, or what kind of resource you need, and the number of machines. So as I put these in, it's going to tell me the items per minute. So let's shoot for 150. And I think if I get that around 24, might be 26. Hey, there you go. Did that right. What have we got? 16, 14. Yeah. Look at the big brain remembering stuff. And then, I don't know, one of those, 175. That's one rocket, right? So there you go. That'll be a megabase. This will be 150. Scale this up. If you're asking about a megabase, maybe you just add a 0 to all of these numbers. 1,500. Seems good, right? And blue belts and assemblies and all of that, that'll show you how much steel you need, which is 22,000 steel with 3,000 cookers cooking up the steel. But then to make all of that, you need 6,000 of these equivalent, right? We're gonna say no military, and 8,000 of these. You can reduce these, of course, if you put in beacons and all of those sorts of things in all of these. Let me see if I think if I change settings, it's going to erase all these. But Kirk McDonald, I'll leave that in the description below. You can put all your inputs in of how much you need, and whether you have beacons or not. I'll go ahead and take this down to maybe a pre-mega base with 150 a minute. This is say I've got the base going and I'm launching rockets per kind of launching rockets every couple of minutes. This would be a good measure. So your ratios here are, say, a full blue belt of steel, because it's about 1.0, and 1 to 10 of iron. Some of that iron is going to go to steel, and then your copper is going to be 11 blue belts of copper, and you have a big network supporting those. Beacons, hopefully, beacons can really help you out here in terms of consolidating that down. You can probably cut off like 80% of all of your machines if you can get speed and your productivity in there, and you can really trim down the number of machines you have cranking out science. But use Kirk McDonald. Also, you can go here and you can say, all right, let's do 1,000, and it should calculate go the other way. And let's go ahead and do this. See how the boldness kicks over to that. You need 6 rocket silos to doing that. These are unbeaconed numbers. If you want to have a goal for a mega base, there you go. This is a decent one. And then plug in the one I didn't do is plug in all your modules and your beacons, all that. Anyway, you can play with this, but Kirk McDonald's is the way you answer all of those types of questions. It's a really great resource. Quizzer 106, is there a list of features to be released with 1.0? Other than this roadmap, no. I'm just gonna go out on a limb and tell you no. There's nothing really that is gonna come that's gonna be groundbreaking for 1.0. There's gonna be some high-res graphics, graphic tweaks, and some sound design. But what you're really asking about is what kind of game changes and what can we expect on that day of. And what I'm here to tell you, do not expect much difference than what version 0.18 is right now. If you looked at this roadmap for them, you'll see what is already done. They've been building it gradually. The biggest and best changes hit with 17 and 1760. Those were some of the most amazing ones where all the gameplay just really honed in, and all the stability, all those sorts of things really took effect. But you're not going to have something major drop on 1.0 specifically. Like, look at this. Version 15 was the release of nuclear power. That's pretty awesome for end game gigabases, right? Not happening for nothing that huge is going to happen for 1.0. So let me set your expectations correctly in that it's just going to be more polish on the gem that is Factorio. OneFurryDude says, I'm pretty new to the game, but is there a way to have my inserters insert more than 10 rounds of ammunition into my turrets? No. The way to probably do this is to kind of bypass this is either with a mod, or stacker inserters can do it. But inserting ammo into a gun turret is kind of more of an early game thing, and stackers is kind of more of a mid to late game. Stacker inserters is more of a mid to late game item, which by then you should be probably thinking of switching over to laser turrets and flame turrets and poison capsules and all of those sorts of things to go out there and defend your base. So no, it's interesting that you have that perspective. that you want more. You want to put more in there to last. Well, that's what the belt does. The belt is where your inventory sits, and is a continuous supply, not the inventory of the gun. So think about that approach. Is you kind of don't want to consume too much in a single gun. So if the issue is if you have a line of 20 guns, all belt fed, and you start a belt behind them, and they're feeding in. Well, the first 2 guns are going to suck up all the ammo, while biters come in at gun number 8 and trash your base. So you kind of do want them distributed, or you want the belt to have your inventory on it, and maybe even cycle around. So I think asking this question, you would do yourself more harm than good by trying to force it that way. pWheff says, I just launched my first rocket in a world without biters and turned on, and am starting up a new world with biters to get the full experience. Good. Okay, this is a great way to do it. But I had a question about biters mining outposts on rail systems. If I deploy solar energy and electric miners and pump jacks and outposts, do I need permanent turrets and defensive structures around them? Yes. Or can I leave them undefended? No. If I do 3-8 trains with single artillery cart, is that sufficient? Maybe. That's not a bad idea. I don't think anything typical at an outpost generates pollution. Wrong. But if I use coal-powered trains, will the outpost get attacked? If the artillery carts destroy biter nests, do the biters attack outposts? Yes. So, couple things. If you're deploying solar energy, that will not pollute, and biters usually ignore solar unless it's in their walking path. Then they'll beat it up. Miners, pump jacks, all pollute like crazy. So either you have to put some efficiency modules in those, but even with and get low pollution, but even with those efficiency modules, you're still going to pollute some. And so you need some trees around it, but the trees aren't going to last forever. You'll eventually irritate some biters. Permanent, unless the outpost is only solar, then you're probably not going to need lasers. And even if it is permanently, even if it's all solar, there is still a chance that biters will be walking along and they won't be able to get around the solar because there's no squeak through in between solar. Unless you put it there, and they'll attack it because it's in their path. It's not a military target, and it doesn't produce pollution, so it's not a natural enemy. They try and ignore it if they can. But all the other stuff, the electric miners and the pump jacks, they're going to come get you. And your radar, they're going to come get you. So you always need your laser turrets or some defense around those outposts. Flame turrets are a great way to do it too, especially if you have oil at the outposts. It's a good idea to put every material train has a artillery cart on it. That's not a bad idea. That way, as a material train goes out to an outpost, as it's loading up, it shoots a couple of biter bases that have popped up. Not a bad idea. However, when those bases get hit with an artillery, those biters are going to come for you. So you do need lasers around guarding your artillery outposts. Whether it's on a train or whether it's a placed artillery, those biters are going to come get you. So you're asking the right question. But the answer to all of this is yes, you must defend outposts if you have biters in your game. EtherealGiles. Sorry for the dumb question. I'm new to the game. Just bought it on Steam yesterday. Awesome. I'm glad you got it on that Steam sale. Treated you right. Did you get a good discount on it? Right? That Steam sale. I tell you what, Factorio goes on sale. It's really great. I'm wondering why my version of the game is still at 0.17, but according to the wiki, the latest is 18. So when you install it, the default is whatever is stable. Right-click it in Steam, go to Properties, and then the Betas tab, and then you can select version 18. 18 is not yet stable. It's in the experimental list. It is not declared as stable, but it is very, very stable and very playable. I would recommend bumping to 18.35 at the time of this recording. Is the latest. So feel free to go ahead and jump in. You're not gonna. It's not gonna crash. Likely, you're not gonna have any problems. You're gonna have great graphics and a great experience. This is an amazingly stable game. Jump into 18 is my recommendation. Fluttershaft says, what was the last game update that changed mechanics, balance, or something that makes videos and threads prior to that outdated? I was confused by something recently that since chemical science recipe was changed, apparently. So version 17.59 was the last one on the previous chemical science, and then it flipped from at 1760. It flipped over to the addition, the other changes for chemical science. So 1760 is a stable build, and basic oil. They did some oil changes. They did chemical science, and they added an additional bit for rocket fuel that rocket fuel now needed. Instead of just converting solid fuel to rocket fuel, it also needed some more additional light oil. And added another place to sink your light oil, which is kind of handy actually. So yeah, 1760 is where the final, I would say this is the final major gameplay change was. But otherwise since then, 1760, it's been basically the same game ever since, with more polish, more tuning, more graphics, more sound, and stability fixes in. The Switchblade, possibly dumb question. I'll be the judge of that, mister. How closely should rail signals be placed to let multiple trains travel as fast as possible? Oh, great. Okay. I have train highways that I want many trains to travel down at the same time. All my trains are 2 cars, 1 locomotive and 1 cargo wagon. Wow. You got a lot of trains. Okay, I put regular rail signals all the way down the lane to make sure it supports high traffic. My question is, should I space the rail signals such that exactly 2 cars fit between the signals, or add more space than that? Yeah. So, what you're going to run into, Switchblade, there's a trade-off. Optimally for speed, 1 signal per space. 0 space between them. Practically, you're going to have a bad time with that. 1, because your brake, if you ever need turns or intersections, it's going to be kind of rough to. You have to pull up a bunch of signals and put intersections in. 2, you're going to kill yourself probably on UPS performance pretty quickly if you put too many of them, because it's having to do the logic for all those segments very, very quickly. What I would say is every other big power pole is a couple of suggestions that are in there. A couple things. I would actually suggest making bigger trains. Remember, the end boss in Factorio is not launching a rocket. It's your computer and your CPU and your RAM, or your server and its performance. So what does eat up some of that performance is trains finding their path and train pathing and all of that operation. It's gotten way better over the last couple of years. But fewer bigger trains are better for moving material in a UPS efficient manner than many small trains, as to what you described here. Getting them fast is a good way. A good rule of thumb is make sure a train can fit in between segments. If you have 2 cars, a locomotive and a wagon, you can put your intersections, put your the separation between your signals, so that a train car can fit in between it. That way, you can kind of reserve those as trains go by. They can reserve blocks, and you can kind of fit trains right up next to each other, as they're speeding along as close as they can, but still maintain a reasonable performance. A lot of people will put it in their blueprints and just do it at the maximum distance of a big power pole, because big power pole is, almost everywhere you put rail, you're going to need to string power out there too. So those sorts of things go together, as we saw in the earlier part of the video. That's also a good rule as long as your train fits between that. But what I would say is, I think the reason for your question is you're trying to get more trains moving faster because you have a lot of trains, and the interchange time of moving one train in and one train out is taken forever. I think that your overall goal of it shouldn't be getting trains faster. It should be moving more material, and bigger trains will help with that. Make sure also you convert everything over to rocket fuel. Rocket fuel and trains go together pretty well. You can do uranium fuel, you can do that. Rocket fuel, uranium fuel make the trains move as fast as they can, with little differences in acceleration. But I think the root cause is moving more material with trains. So I would recommend looking at your stops and just making bigger trains. I've also got a segment in a couple videos ago about the number of locomotives versus cargo wagons that are full and good, and what is the ratio between the two that makes it do good acceleration, good speed, get up to speed quickly, and not have any issues there. And I've got some suggestions for you. I can link that in the chat as well. Are the plus lab speed researches a trap? It's way cheaper to just make more labs. Great question. They do pay off. They do pay off. It's early game. It may not be worth it. But you will eventually pay that off. A lot of the late game science takes longer and much more to get through. So like the rocket silo is 1,000 of each flavor. Nuclear is 1,000, some 1,500. It's a lot. It's not a trap. It is worth it, but it won't be worth it until you get to end game. The good news is that those types of upgrades, once you're done with it, it immediately takes effect on all of your other assemblies, and whereas you add a lab, you have to maintain that lab. You have to add electricity. You have to add inserters, and you have real estate to take up to accommodate that lab. This one is completely free and forever. Or it's free after your one-time investment, and it's forever. You don't have. There's no extra maintenance or support to get that extra research bonus that you would if you just added another lab. So they are definitely worth it, but you won't realize their worth until you get into end game, specifically some of those larger and longer lasting sciences. Thank you very much for watching this video. If you like this sort of thing, make sure you hit that like, subscribe, leave a comment if you have a comment or a question. All the links I've talked about have been in the description below. If you want to be a part of one of these live, come check it out at twitch.tv/clowntown. You can be a part of this every Friday night as we do this recording. So thank you very much for your support, and we'll see you next time.